you like scary movies and coffee?
The following show is based on research on horror movies and what goes on behind the scenes of your favorite scary movies. Horde Entertainment or ReAnimateHer is not responsible for the macabre and horror that you are about to witness. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, my day workers. I am ReAnimateHer, your queen of horror, and this is Coffee Chat of Horrors, the only horror show that takes its coffee like it's magic, and that is black. Today's screams come from Fred Dekker's Night of the Creeps, so why not thrill me? Buckle up, ghouls, as we traverse through the realms that nightmares are made of. Night of the Creeps was released in 1986. God, that feels like such a long time ago. 1986, it feels like it's so long ago in 1986. Anyways, it remains a beloved cult classic among horror aficionados. Directed by Fred Dekker, the film is a true treasure trove of references, behind-the-scenes anecdotes, and quirky details that have cemented its status as a cult favorite. So let's embark on that deep dive into the world of Night of the Creeps. And let's check out the trailer that we have for this film. Now, 1986, I will tell you, I don't know how well the trailer is going to be. You were
The night of the fall is finally here. For Chris, Cindy, and JC. It's going to be the best night of their lives. But tonight is also the night of the creeps. From a world unknown comes a nightmare unimagined. First, they are under you, around you, on you, and then inside you.
They get in through your mouth and you walk around while they incubate, even if you're dead.
They are a new breed of terror.
Freeze!
They are a different kind of horror.
Zombies, exploding heads, creepy crawlies. We could have a little problem.
The creeps are taking over.
I got good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
You have never had a night like this. Night of the creeps. If you scream, you're dead.
If you scream, you're dead. I love Night of the Creeps. It is an awesome friggin' movie, and you definitely need to check out Night of the Creeps. I will warn you now, though, if you've never seen the film, we are going to have some spoilers, okay? It happens. This film has been out since 1986. It is a great mixture of horror and comedy, because it really is. And it is a new look at the zombie genre, as it's not your typical zombie film. So Night of the Creeps is a friggin' classic. It became a cult classic right away as well, even though it did not do as well as they hoped at the box office, and it really did not. The budget for this film, and it's gonna kill you when you hear the box office, the budget for this film was $5 million USD. 5 million. 5 mil in the box office. Now you're thinking 5 million, that's not really a lot of money. No, that's not really a big budget. That's not really, it isn't a lot of money. It's a low budget horror film, and it's considered a low budget horror film. However, the box office, it only made $591,366. $5 million to make. Box office brought in $591,366. Good news, girls, your dates are here, but they're dead. That is their most famous tagline in this movie. Now, this movie has a lot of great one-liners. It really does. Like, it's Miller time. which is one of the best scenes. However, the one-liners are great. All right, so the OG titles. I don't know if you guys know some of the titles for this movie. Before it was called Night of the Creeps. You know, movies like to hide or keep their movies secret, so they always rename them something else as they're traveling to and from the theaters, right? So we know that, you know, almost every film has a top secret name that is utilized why it's being produced and why it's being sent to movie theaters and so forth. So the original title that this was going around as was Deadly Invasion: The Killer Bee Nightmare. Yeah. I don't know where they get the bee from, but the Killer Bee Nightmare. And then the other title for this film was also Homecoming Night. I think they did really good by picking the title Night of the Creeps. So when you watch Night of the Creeps, you're going to notice some of the names that are in this film. And that is what Fred Dekker wanted this film to be. He included every B-movie cliche he could think of, and he insisted on directing the script himself. Yeah. So in this film, he pays homage to numerous legendary horror and sci-fi directors through using their last names. So for example, George A. Romero, in here, Chris Romero was his name. John Carpenter and Toby Hooper were James Carpenter Hooper. And then you have David Cronenberg. Her name was Cynthia Cronenberg. James Cameron was Detective Ray Cameron. John Landis is Detective Landis. Sam Raimi, Sergeant Raimi. And Steve Miner, Mr. Miner, the janitor. So there are quite a few that he paid homage to inside this movie. Directors that he, inspired, looked up to, and respected. And I thought that was really cool. I love when directors do these types of things in their films where they throw nods and show that kind of respect for their fellow horror directors and writers. Now, this film includes every B-movie cliche you could possibly think of from the 80s and the 70s, because that is what Fred Dekker did when he created this film. He utilized every cliche you could possibly think of in that time frame and put it in this movie, and it is filled with cliches, like filled with them. A lot of one-liners, which It's Miller Time and Thrill Me are two of my favorites. And Thrill Me, you will hear, I don't know, 40 times throughout the film. I should have counted it last night when I was watching it, but I did not think about it. The screenplay for Night of the Creeps was written by Dekker in just 3 weeks. 3 friggin' weeks. And I mean, that's really quick. It took forever for this film to make it to screen, though. It took the film 6 years to go from script to screen, which blows my mind. He had a lot of problems in trying to produce this film, but it finally came to fruition when it did. And that was 6 years after the screen was written. This was a huge hit, direct-to-video, like a home video. When it went to home video after it hit box office, it was huge. People were buying this. This video, home video, really made Night of the Creeps an actual cult classic, because that's how people were watching this after the fact. It wasn't playing on TV. You literally rented it at home on VHS. So graffiti references, you know how we were just talking about the Monster Squad and Striper rules, adds a layer of intellectuality. Oh my God, I can't even speak this morning. Connecting the film to other works and personal relationships of the crew. Fred Dekker did a lot of personal stuff in this film. He utilized, like I said, paid homage to some of his favorite directors and writers in the sci-fi and horror genre. And he utilized quite a bit of references from his other films. Monster Squad is one of them. There is graffiti or writing on the wall, and that is from Monster Squad. That is a direct Easter egg to Monster Squad. Gordon, the cat in this movie, was also named after film producer Gordon Carroll. Some of the behind the scenes that you will see here, director Fred Dekker originally wanted to shoot this film in black and white. In the beginning of the film, you actually see it in black and white, where it opens up. it's the 50s and, you know, they're going to Lover's Lane and they're going to go make out or whatever. And it starts out just like that, like a 1950s movie, black and white. And it has this crazy axe murderer inside of this movie. So it starts off as a movie inside of a movie. And once they do the whole axe murdering part and they go to present day 1986. And then that's where you see Tom Atkins as a detective who also does some flashbacks. So you kind of get an understanding, an idea of who he was when the first part of this film comes out, which is in black and white. But he wanted the whole film to be in black and white. And I'm kind of glad that he steered away from that, because I liked how the black and white in the beginning of the film set the rest of the film, and the separation of the Technicolor of the film compared to the black and white. Fred Dekker's creative decisions, from shooting in a converted Woolworth's department store to incorporating reshoots for added action, really shed light on the film's production process. So they filmed the majority of this in a abandoned Woolworth building. This was filmed, they repurposed a Woolworth's department store into what you see in this film. The majority was actually filmed there. Towards the end of the film, this is a spoiler, at the end of the film, you're going to see a spaceship and a small town that was all miniature. This film takes aliens and zombies and mashes them together. I know it sounds weird because we're so used to like Romero zombies or 28 Days zombies. This film takes alien slugs, which reanimate the dead or kill you and reanimate you. So it literally has an originality with zombies and aliens. I don't think there's many films that are considered zombie films that base themselves off of basically aliens. So these aliens, slugs, right? They came down to Earth in an asteroid or whatever. They land down, of course, in the 1950s. So that's where it's nice and black and white that you see, the black and white film that you see. And then it goes into these creatures, these alien slug things. Slither is so gross, Gothic, yes. But yes, it takes zombie genre and aliens and mixes them together, and you have Night of the Creeps, zombie slug bodies. The practical effects used in Night of the Creeps were achieved through a combination of puppetry, another movie that used puppetry, prosthetics, and animatronics. So a few of the animal scenes that you do see is puppetry. House mom, because the house mother was watching a movie, and the movie she was watching was Plan 9 from Outer Space, which was released in 1957. If you have not seen that low budget sci-fi, you need to go and see Plan 9 from Outer Space. You do. It is it's almost like a horror rite of passage. If you haven't seen it, you need to go see it so you can have your rite of passage. This is Tom Atkins' favorite movie of his own. He really loved playing the role of detective. He really loved his role here. And he speaks about this a lot. So if you ever see Tom Atkins at like a Comic-Con or in an interview or a HorrorCon, he does talk about this film quite a bit. It's one of his favorites that he is in. Okay, so at the beginning of the movie, at the sorority house, Pam's roommate is talking on the phone with a friend and asks her if she's seen Plan 9 from Outer Space, which this movie plays a huge role in horror history. Anyways, this movie was directed and written by Edward D. Wood Jr. that came out that year. Later on in the movie, in 1986, the house mother is also watching the same movie on the TV. So in the beginning, you're going to see a lot of Plan 9 from Outer Space references because it's an awesome movie. Believe it or not, Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger both played zombie extras in this film. Now, if you've seen this, you know that there is a handicapped character. One of the main characters, the portrayal of JC. JC is a handicapped character underscores Dekker's intention to depict diversity without making it the focal point of the story. There's no reason aside except what we just don't see it. You can make a movie with a character who is handicapped without the story being about the fact that he's handicapped. That is a direct quote from an interview that Fred Dekker did when he was asked about the scene and his character being handicapped. And he wanted to make it a point that, you know, you can have handicapped actors in your movies and portraying without making it the focal point of the film. Some of Tom Atkins, so his role here, he did come up with some of the things himself. So, you know, the idea where if you've seen the movie, Detective Ray Cameron stops and he smells a rose in one particular scene. That is what Tom Atkins came up with, as he felt it was, it added a little something to the film itself. So when you're watching this, that was improv. That was done on the whim by Tom Atkins. It wasn't written in the script. He felt the moment to do that, and that's what he did. Also, the college football team, the Bulldogs, was named in tribute to the writer and director of Fred Dekker's high school football team. Like I said, there's a lot of homage. He pays a lot of homage and personal homage to friends, families, and directors and screenwriters and producers that he respected. And you'll see that throughout this film. And again, there's another little tidbit. The actual team, Bulldogs, is from his own high school football team. I can't forget about the Adams. Yeah, yes, that they did. There's a lot. Jill Whitlow, she is in this film and was considered by some as one of the first female empowered action heroines, just in front of Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor in 1984, the film Terminator, right? So Jill Whitlow, she did quite a bit in this film, and you know, she is considered one of the first female empowered action heroines. There was potential talks of a remake with James Wan. The film's enduring legacy and influence on future generations of filmmakers is huge. A lot of filmmakers, the younger filmmakers, and I don't want to say younger because they're not really that young, but like James Wan, all have been inspired by some of the 80s horror that they grew up watching. Do I want a remake? No, but I would love a sequel, and they do leave it open to an actual sequel, just like The Stuff left it open for another sequel, which I think would have been great. I would have loved a sequel to The Stuff. And I'd love to see a sequel to Night of the Creeps. I don't want to spoil the ending for you guys, so I'm not going to say it. So we'll just leave it like that. Fred Dekker did not want to do stop motion or guys in suits for the opening glimpse of the aliens on board their ship. But he still wanted them to appear different from the norm. So he ended up putting little people in suits. He said, "It didn't occur to me that it would get a laugh from the get-go. It was unintentional, but he thinks it gave the audience an approval to laugh going forward," which I will agree with. And that is the scene where I told you where we first started watching it and Heavy just looked at me at these little alien creatures. Yeah, that was it. This film, that starting point allowed you to laugh with the rest of the film. It really did. And I think it did a great job of mixing horror and comedy with their great special effects. With the little guys in their opening costumes, they were little people in baby alien costumes. They are quite weird looking, and if you've never seen this before and you watch the opening, you're gonna be like, what the fuck? Just like Heavy did. Fred Dekker said in the DVD commentary that the scene where Cynthia, played by Jill Whitlow, she changes her top, was staged intentionally to leave the viewers wondering if she was going to show her boobs. And I love how they do these things in these films, because every horror film, for the most part, especially back in the 80s, showed boobies. The idea here was, are we going to see her boobs? And we wait until the very last beat, and then she turns around. The idea there is obviously nudity always makes your heroine more vulnerable, which it truly does. Which I thought was a great scene, and you do see boobs, so there is boobs in this movie. Not as plentiful as some other movies, but there are boobs in this film. Now, the scene where Chris, played by Jason Lively, listens to JC's tape presented a challenge due to Lively's playfulness. And you'll understand this scene if you've seen the movie, or if you go and watch it after this, you'll understand it. So there's a scene where Chris is talking to JC, actually on the tape of JC. So he's listening to the tape that JC left, which I found was weird because how did JC leave that tape? I'm not going to ruin it. Anyways, Fred Dekker put photos of atrocities around the actor and told him off screen to look at them at various points in the scene. So he's looking at them. So he posted these atrocities to get that reaction because, again, Jason Lively was very playful and comedic when in his acting. And he had to actually look at some nasty shit to kind of get that look of like, oh my God, right? And sadness on his face. There is one part where you can see him look at Auschwitz, which is at about an hour and 4 minutes and 20 seconds in. Dekker said it was really important to him that he take the scene seriously. So, spoiler alert, Chris is listening to his best friend on a tape recorder because his best friend succumbs to evil, and he's talking on it, and it had to be a moment of seriousness where the rest of the film isn't really overly serious, but this part of the film is, and he had to bring that in, and it was really hard for Jason Lively to do that. So Fred Dekker did put atrocities around him and had him look at it so he would be more serious in his role when he was talking. When leaving the house, Mother's Cottage, on one of the police officers mentioned getting in contact with Officer Dante and Del Palma, named for the directors Joe Dante from Gremlins and The Howling and Brian De Palma from Carrie. So there is a lot of homage for people in this. Not just your Romero, not just your Carpenter. You have a ton of references in here. And a lot of people miss that as well. They don't realize that the officer's name, who is Officer Dante and Del Palma, they don't seem to catch that because they never think of The Howling or Gremlins or Carrie in this film. But there is a huge amount of homage to horror in this film alone. And this is 1986 as well. So some of the cultural impact that this film has had. So Night of the Creeps explores the themes of friendship, loyalty, and resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds, which a lot of our movies in horror show you, right? You can overcome anything. Why horror raises what society would look as weak. Usually horror rises up, right? So you have that's how you get your final girl, your final boy, whatever, your final whatever, is for that reason. And I'm not a huge final person. I prefer everybody die in the most violent way ever. But we have to have our final girl, final boy, final couple. The film script was written in just a week. The script itself was a week. The whole screenwrite was 3 weeks, and it took 6 years to get to screen. The underscore is rapid creation and lasting impact on pop culture, which it really has. And if you look at it, a lot of the movies made afterwards about sororities you can see a direct inspiration from Night of the Creeps. Now, the film does have other connections. Like I said, Plan 9 from Outer Space and the brain leeches. There are brain leeches. That's basically what they are, like those slugs things. They're brain leeches. Highlights the film's place within the broader horror genre. So, a direct inspiration of the brain leeches and Plan 9 from Outer Space. These two films played a huge role and inspiration in the creation of Night of the Creeps. We're right there. We are coming to the end of our CCOH. Yeah, I really like this film. It it can be, when I say family friendly, for someone who is in a teenage era, so 13, 14, 15. So if you have a 13, 14, 15-year-old, I think this film would be a good thing for them to see. It's not over the top. There is really no real sex in this film. You do see a couple of boobs, but they're not long, drawn-out scene of boobs or anything like that. It's usually changing room boobs, you know, getting ready to go shower or change into your prom dress or whatever. That's the kind of boobs that you see. Nothing over the top crazy. Now, Night of the Creeps has really great practical effects. And when I think if I can zoom in, I wonder if I can zoom in on this. And show you. So there is one of the references to the movie right here, to some of the movies. Hello, Metro. I'm trying to see, and Striper rules. Remember I was telling you that there are graffiti for Monster Squad. Striper rules, and then right in here as well. So there it is, classic Spanky. Rusty, you know, you guys remember National Lampoon's Vacation? The redheaded boy, his name was Rusty. Well, Rusty, Chris Lively, is one of the main characters. Jason Lively plays the role of Chris, who also plays the role of Rusty in National Lampoon's. But anyways, we are coming to the end of our coffee chat of horrors, and I'm glad that you guys spent your Sunday morning with me. It's evident that the enduring appeal lies not only in the scares, but it's also rich tapestry of references, characters, and behind-the-scenes anecdotes. Whether you're a die-hard fan or a newcomer to the genre, Night of the Creeps offers something truly special and thrilling journey into the heart of horror cinema. And it really does. This film, not only does it play a really huge role in inspiration to other films later on in the genre, which there are quite a few, that were, especially the directors of our era, you know what I mean, have been inspired. James Wan, one of them, and I know you guys know James Wan, definitely was one of his big inspirations here. For Night of the Creeps was one of his big inspirations, which I thought was really cool. And it's really nice to find out that Fred Dekker put in a lot of personal references and made this movie not just about his own life and his own personal stuff, but in there people that he respected, which I thought was really cool. That is our coffee chat of horrors deep dive into A Night of the Creeps.